What if the reason she is not chasing you has nothing to do with your looks, your money, or your game, and everything to do with the emotional access you keep giving away for free? Not your attention, not your compliments. I mean access to your certainty, your time, your availability, your validation. Because the truth is uncomfortable, most men don't lose women because they do too little. They lose them because they do too much, too soon, with no standards, no pacing, and no self-protection. And what I'm about to show you is the specific type of detachment that flips that dynamic and makes women seek you out. It will sound cold at first, almost cruel, but if you actually understand the psychology behind it, you'll realize it's not cruelty. It's self-respect, expressed in a way that triggers real attraction. Let's get one thing clear immediately, because most guys confuse detachment with acting like a robot. They go, no contact, they reply late on purpose, they try to look busy, they fake indifference, they talk to other girls just to create jealousy, and they call that detachment. That is not detachment, that is performance, and performance always leaks. The moment she senses you're doing a tactic, your value drops. Real detachment is not ignoring, it's not punishing, it's not playing dead. Real detachment is being emotionally self-contained. It's being able to like her without needing her. And the reason this works is simple. Need is pressure. Need is a contract you never negotiated. Need is the invisible demand that says, I'm giving you attention, so you owe me reassurance. Women feel that demand even when you never say it, and it suffocates attraction. Now I'm going to make this sharp because you asked for what's effective, not what's comforting. The cruel but effective detachment is this. You detach from outcomes, not from women. You detach from the fantasy, not from respect. You detach from chasing validation, not from being a man with warmth. You detach from the urge to secure her, lock her down, or control the uncertainty. And yes, it can feel cruel because you will stop doing what weak men do. You will stop over-explaining, over-investing, over-texting, over-giving, and over-tolerating. That's why it feels cruel. Not because you're hurting her, but because you're finally refusing to hurt yourself. If you understand attachment theory, you'll see why this hits so hard. Humans bond through patterns of availability and responsiveness. When a man becomes anxiously attached, he tries to close the gap by increasing pursuit. More messages, more check-ins, more reassurance requests, more emotional dumping, more "where are we going?" talks too early. That does the opposite of what he wants. It signals that his inner world is unstable and that she is the stabilizer. That makes her feel like she is parenting your emotions instead of being attracted to your masculinity. Detachment is the cure because it signals a regulated nervous system. It signals that you can handle uncertainty. And a man who can handle uncertainty is a man who feels dangerous in the right way. Grounded, calm, not needy, not easily shaken. Here's the psychological mechanism most men miss. Attraction grows in the space between stimulus and response. When you instantly respond to everything, instantly try to fix everything, instantly try to clarify everything, you remove space. And space is where imagination happens. Space is where she wonders. Space is where she checks her phone and feels a small pull. Space is where her emotions can move toward you without you dragging them. This is also connected to reactance theory. When people feel pressured, they resist. When they feel free, they lean in. The more you try to secure her, the more her autonomy pushes back. The more you respect her autonomy and your own, the more she chooses you. And what creates that choice is your ability to be okay either way. So let's define the type of detachment that makes women seek you out in a way you can actually apply. It is not, I don't care. It is, I care, but I'm not collapsing into you. It is, I enjoy you, but my life does not revolve around your mood. It is, I'm open, but I'm not available for disrespect. It is, I'm consistent, but I'm not chasing. It is emotional independence with masculine direction. This is where men get uncomfortable because it demands a shift in identity. You're not trying to win her. You're screening her. You're not auditioning. You're deciding. That one frame change alone makes women feel something powerful. They feel that your attention has weight, and attention only has weight when it is selective. Scarcity is not pretending you're scarce. Scarcity is having standards that naturally limit access to you. Now listen carefully. You can be a warm man and still be detached. Warmth without attachment is magnetic because it feels like you're giving from abundance, not from hunger. When you compliment her, it doesn't sound like a bribe. When you text her, it doesn't sound like a checkup. When you invite her out, it feels like leadership, not like desperation. This is why the best seduction is not lines. It's nervous system control. The ability to stay centered when she is hot and cold, when she delays, when she tests, when she flirts, when she goes quiet. Most men fail right there. They take inconsistency personally and start negotiating for clarity, and negotiation kills tension. Yes, you heard me. Tension dies when you demand certainty too soon. Sexual tension, romantic tension, emotional tension, all of it thrives on a calibrated level of uncertainty. Not chaos, not drama, not anxiety. Calibrated uncertainty. The kind where she knows you like her, but she doesn't know how far she has you. She knows you're interested, but she can feel you're not owned. That's the sweet spot, and it's created by a detachment from outcome. Let me show you the core behaviors of this detachment, but I'm going to phrase them in a way that forces you to become the man, not just copy a tactic. First, you stop using communication as a way to soothe your anxiety. If you are texting to feel calm, you are already losing. Your phone becomes a pacifier, and women can sense when your messages are not about connection, but about relief. The detached man texts with purpose, to set plans, to share something real, to build playful rapport, not to monitor her interest, not to force a response, not to keep the vibe. The vibe is not kept through frequency. The vibe is kept through emotional tone and consistency. Second, you stop rewarding lukewarm behavior with premium access. This one is the part that sounds cruel, because weak men think being nice means giving more when they receive less. They think love is proving. They think loyalty is tolerating. No, healthy attraction follows reinforcement. If she is engaged, respectful, receptive, you reward that with your presence and your leadership. If she is dismissive, flaky, disrespectful, you remove attention. Not with anger, not with revenge, with calm. This is basic behavioral psychology. Reinforcement shapes behavior. You are teaching her what gets access to you, and the cruelty is simply the moment you stop being available to be used. Third, you stop over-investing early. The investment model in relationship psychology is clear. Commitment grows when investment grows, and alternatives feel less attractive. But men try to skip steps by investing heavily at the start to force commitment. That backfires because it reverses polarity. Investment should be earned. It should be mutual. It should be paced. When you invest too much too early, you communicate that you don't have options, that you don't have boundaries, and that your self-worth is tied to her approval. The detached man invests in stages. He gives a little, watches her response, then gives more if it's reciprocated. That's not manipulation, that's emotional intelligence. Fourth, you become non-reactive. This is where stoicism quietly dominates seduction. The average man is reactive. She takes longer to reply, he panics. She posts a photo, he overthinks. She cancels, he argues. She tests him, he explains. Reactivity is weakness because it proves she controls your emotional state. Non-reactivity is power because it proves you control yourself. And control of self is the foundation of masculine attraction. When she senses she cannot push you off your center, she becomes curious. She tests more. Not because she hates you, because she's checking if your strength is real. Understand this. Tests are not always conscious. Many times they're emotional probes. She wants to feel if you're stable, if you're congruent, if you crumble under uncertainty, if you can lead without force. Detachment passes tests because it doesn't need to win the moment. It doesn't need to prove. It doesn't chase approval. It stays consistent. Now let's talk about the part men secretly fear. If I detach, won't she leave? Here's the brutal truth. If the only reason she stays is because you are clinging, she was never yours. You were just a source of validation. Detachment reveals reality, and reality is your ally. Because when you stop chasing, one of two things happens. Either she leans in, because she now feels your value and your standards, or she disappears, because she was only there for attention. Either result is a win, but you only see it as a win when you're not addicted to outcomes. This is where the masculine mindset becomes your weapon. You have to stop treating dating like a courtroom where you're trying to prove you deserve love. That's feminine energy in a man, pleading, performing, persuading. Masculine is choosing, leading, building. You are building your life. She is invited into it, not placed at the center of it. That's the difference between a man she respects and a man she manages. Let's go deeper into what makes this detachment so effective. It creates a psychological contrast. Most men are predictable. They are emotionally available on demand. They become always on. And always on feels cheap. It feels like a store that's open 24/7 with no standards. Your attention becomes a currency with inflation. But when you are detached, your attention becomes a scarce resource. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because your life has structure, your time has value, your energy has direction. And women are attracted to men whose lives are already moving forward without them. That's not ego, that's biology and psychology. There's also something called the uncertainty effect. When outcomes are slightly uncertain, people often think about them more. That's why gambling hooks people, why cliffhangers keep you watching, why mixed signals can become addictive. But here's the key. You are not going to use uncertainty to create addiction. You're going to use uncertainty to create intrigue while staying respectful and clear. You do this by being consistent in your character, but not constantly available. Consistent in your standards, but not constantly reassuring. Clear in your interest, but not constantly chasing. So how do you communicate this detachment without saying a word? Through pacing, through your response rhythm, through your decisiveness, through your willingness to walk away from low-effort energy, through your calmness when she pulls back. Let me give you a practical picture you can embody. The detached man does not keep the conversation alive when she's not contributing. He doesn't punish her. He simply doesn't carry dead weight. If she answers with dry energy, he doesn't start performing. He backs off and returns to his life. And that's where she feels it. She realizes her lukewarm energy no longer controls you. She realizes she has to bring something to keep you engaged. That flips the chase. And yes, that can feel cruel to men who were taught that masculinity means pursue harder. But that's the old model. Pursuing harder works on insecurity, not on respect. It might get you short-term compliance, but it kills long-term desire. Real desire requires freedom. It requires choice. Detachment gives her freedom to choose you because you are not trying to trap her with constant attention. Now, before you apply anything, you need to understand the 3 levels of detachment because most men try to skip to level 3 and sabotage themselves. Level 1 is external detachment. You stop over-texting, you stop chasing, you stop double messaging, you stop asking for reassurance. This is behavior. It helps, but it's not enough if your inner world is still anxious. Level 2 is emotional detachment. You stop letting her responses determine your mood. You stop interpreting every delay as rejection. You stop treating uncertainty as danger. This is nervous system mastery. This is where most men fail because it requires discipline. Level 3 is identity detachment. You stop making getting her your proof of worth. You stop using women as a scoreboard. You stop needing a relationship to feel like a man. This is the highest level, and this is the one that makes women seek you out because it changes your entire presence. You no longer approach from hunger. You approach from choice. If you want women to chase, you have to become the kind of man who doesn't need chasing. That paradox is real. Neediness is repulsive. Self-sufficiency is attractive. And self-sufficiency is not loneliness. It's wholeness. Now let's address a common mistake. Some guys hear this and become emotionally unavailable. They become cold. They act dismissive. They treat women like they're beneath them. That is not detachment. That is insecurity dressed as arrogance. True detachment is calm, respectful, direct. You can say, "I like you," and still be detached. You can be playful and still be detached. You can be affectionate and still be detached. The difference is, you don't lose yourself. So what do you do when she pulls away? This is the moment that decides everything. The average man panics. He increases investment. He sends a long paragraph. He asks what's wrong. He tries to fix it. He becomes her therapist. He offers more value to stop the fear. That teaches her that pulling away gives her control and rewards her with more of you. Detachment does the opposite. You allow space. You don't chase. You remain steady. You might check in once, lightly, without pressure, and then you return to your life because you trust your value. You trust your path. You trust that if she wants you, she'll meet you halfway, and if she doesn't, you don't beg. This is where the cruel label appears. Because many women are used to men who chase. When you don't chase, it can feel like you're withholding. But you're not withholding affection. You're withholding unearned access. And that distinction matters. You're not trying to make her suffer. You're refusing to suffer. Let's talk about standards, because standards are the backbone of detachment. If you have no standards, detachment becomes empty. Standards are what make your distance meaningful. Without standards, you're just absent. With standards, your presence is earned. A standard can be simple: respect, consistency, honesty, effort, alignment. When you communicate through your actions that these are required, women who are emotionally healthy will respect you more. Women who want attention without accountability will leave. Again, win either way. Now, here's a big secret from classic persuasion psychology. People value what they invest in, not what they receive for free. This is why detachment works. When you stop overgiving, she has to invest to keep you. When she invests, she values you more. This is not manipulation. It's how human psychology works. The problem is that needy men reverse it. They invest more, hoping she will value them. That makes her lazy. It teaches her she can do less and still receive more. Detachment breaks that pattern. How do you get her to invest without asking her to invest? By not over-functioning, by not filling every silence, by not saving every interaction, by not carrying the entire connection on your back. A relationship dynamic is like a dance. If you do all the steps, she stops dancing. If you lead with structure and then allow her room to move, she participates. She feels alive. She feels chosen. She feels the pull to earn. Now I'm going to give you a principle that will change the way you move. Always give slightly less than your feelings want to give. Not less than respect, not less than integrity, slightly less than your impulse. Because your impulse is usually fueled by anxiety or excitement, not by strategy. If you are excited, you want to text more. You want to see her more. You want to lock it in. If you obey that impulse, you collapse the tension and reveal attachment. If you give slightly less, you maintain polarity. You maintain mystery. You maintain space. And she leans in. This does not mean you become distant forever. It means you pace. You let things build. You allow anticipation. Anticipation is one of the strongest emotional forces in attraction. It's stronger than satisfaction. Satisfaction ends the chase. Anticipation fuels it. This is why the most addictive experiences are not the ones you get immediately, but the ones you move toward. Detachment creates healthy anticipation. Now let's talk about the communication style of detachment, because a lot of men either overtalk or undertalk. Overtalking is insecurity. Undertalking can be cowardice. The detached man is concise. He is clear. He does not explain himself into a smaller man. He does not justify boundaries. He states them calmly. If she cancels and offers no alternative, the average man says, "No worries," and then keeps chasing. The detached man says something simple, calm, and final in tone. Not rude, not dramatic, just a signal that his time matters. The power is not in the words. It's in the emotional energy behind them. "I'm not available for inconsistency." Then he moves on. That movement is what triggers her mind. She realizes you are not trapped. If she goes cold and then comes back like nothing happened, the average man accepts crumbs because he's relieved. The detached man is polite but not instantly available. He doesn't punish. He simply resets the standard. She doesn't get full access until she shows consistency. Again, not cruelty, self-respect. And now, the most important part, you must build a life that supports detachment. If you don't, detachment becomes impossible. Because if your life is empty, she becomes your entertainment. If your purpose is weak, her attention becomes your drug. If you have no mission, you chase romance to feel alive. That's why the strongest seduction advice is always the same at the root. Become a man with direction. Train your body. Build your skills. Improve your finances. Deepen your friendships. Create goals that matter. Not because it's a cliche, because it gives you real abundance. And abundance is the foundation of detachment. Women chase men who are moving, not men who are waiting. Waiting energy is feminine. Moving energy is masculine. When your life is moving, your absence is not a tactic. It's a reality. You are busy. You are building. You are not hovering. Now, let's address what happens inside her when you embody this. Her emotional system starts to do something interesting. It starts to test your permanence. When you are too available, she assumes you are permanent, so she relaxes. When you are detached, she senses you could leave, so she pays attention. This is not fear, it's value calibration. People protect what they might lose. They ignore what is guaranteed. The detached man is not threatening to leave. He is simply not guaranteeing he will stay if the quality is low. That's the difference. This also taps into what many call pre-selection dynamics, but not in the superficial way. It's not about showing off other women. It's about showing that you are chosen by life, that your confidence comes from competence, that your presence is earned through your own discipline. That kind of man doesn't need to prove himself with social tricks. His energy alone creates the question in her mind, why does he feel so solid? And that question is the beginning of pursuit. Now, I want you to hear this next part with maturity. If you use detachment to punish women, you will become bitter, and bitterness is repulsive. Detachment is not a weapon against her. It is armor for you. It's the difference between a man who is centered and a man who is controlled. You're not trying to make her chase. You're trying to create a dynamic where she must choose you freely. If she doesn't choose you, you do not collapse. That's the win. So here's the internal script you must adopt. I want you, but I don't need you. I'll lead, but I won't chase. I'll give warmth, but I won't beg. I'll be consistent, but I won't tolerate disrespect. I'll enjoy you, but I won't abandon myself. That is the type of detachment that changes everything. And now, let's talk about the cruel edge, walking away without theatrics. Most men either stay too long or leave with drama. Drama is still attachment. It still proves she has emotional control over you. The detached man can walk away with calm. He doesn't announce it. He doesn't make speeches. He doesn't try to be understood. He simply withdraws his investment. This is the deepest form of power in dating, the ability to remove yourself from what doesn't honor you. If you can do that, you become rare, because most men can't. They tolerate disrespect to avoid loneliness. They accept crumbs to avoid silence. They trade dignity for attention. The moment you stop doing that, you are no longer competing with other men. You are competing with her comfort. And if your presence is high quality, she will choose you over comfort. Let's make it even more practical. Your job is to become the man who sets the tempo, not the man who reacts to her tempo. That means you propose plans, you lead, you decide, and you do it without needing her approval. If she's in, great. If she's out, you move. Tempo is leadership. Leadership creates safety. And safety is attractive when it's paired with challenge. Detachment is the challenge. Your groundedness is the safety. That combination is deadly. Now I'm going to address the final trap: fear of losing her. This fear is the root of all unattractive behavior. It's the reason men overtext, overgive, overexplain, tolerate disrespect, accept inconsistency, and abandon standards. If you want to master detachment, you have to train yourself to accept loss. Not because you want to lose, but because you refuse to be owned by fear. A man who is not afraid to lose a woman is not careless. He's free. And freedom is magnetic. Here's what you do starting today, in your mind. You stop idolizing women. You stop treating them as judges of your worth. You treat them as human beings with their own desires, fears, and patterns. You enjoy them. You respect them. You lead them when they're receptive. And you release them when they're not. No hate. No resentment. No clinging. That alone will transform your energy. If you want a single sentence to remember, it's this: the detachment that makes women seek you out is the detachment that proves you will not sacrifice your self-respect to keep her attention. That's the cruel part, because the world taught you to be agreeable. The world taught you to be the nice guy who never risks disapproval. But attraction is not built on avoiding disapproval. Attraction is built on being a man with a spine. So when you walk away from low effort, you're not being cruel, you're being congruent. When you stop chasing, you're not being cold, you're being centered. When you let her wonder, you're not manipulating. You're allowing natural polarity to do its work. And if you do this correctly, something will happen that most men never experience. She will start reaching out more. She will start asking questions. She will start trying to lock in plans. She will start doing small things to get your attention, not because you tricked her, because you finally removed the cheap version of you and only offered the real version, the man who is warm but not weak, interested but not needy, present but not owned. That is the type of detachment that changes the game. And if you're serious about becoming that man, the next time you feel the urge to chase, pause and ask yourself one question. Am I moving from desire, or am I moving from fear? If it's fear, stop. Return to your life. Return to your mission. Return to your center, because the man she seeks out is never the man who begs to be chosen. It's the man who is already choosing himself.